Hey guys, I'm Odetta Shell. Today we're going to show you 3 different techniques for 3 different steaks to cook steak on the grill better than any restaurant you've ever been to. Chapter 1, the thick steaks. We've got a 3-inch thick Florentine steak. This is basically just an extra thick porterhouse. We have our T-bone down the middle. We have a filet mignon on this side, beautiful New York strip on this side. We just pulled it out of the freezer, so it's still de-thawing a little bit. But for large pieces of meat, I think you have to go 2-zone cooking, because what we're really looking for is this beautiful, tender, juicy, kind of medium rare, rosy inside, and then this beautiful outside brown crust. This is the Maillard chemical reaction, and that is just like phenomenal char. But unfortunately, those two things, those two goals that we're looking for, juicy, tender, medium rare, kind of like 130 to 135 temperature inside, and this beautiful brown crust. The techniques to do that are mutually exclusive. So we gotta, if we were to blast this with high heat, say 600-700 degrees, by the time you got your beautiful brown crust, the inside is still completely raw on a big piece of meat like this. And if we were to go really slow and get the inside up to a beautiful medium rare, the outside, if we did at low temperature, for example, 250, 275 degrees, by the time we hit medium rare temperature, we would not have a beautiful crust at all. It would look like, not very appetizing. So that's where a lot of the reverse sear movement comes from, or 2-zone cooking, where we're going to cook this very slow to bring it up to temperature. And then we're going to hammer it with super high heat. We're going to introduce fat into the food, and it's going to be absolutely delicious. This is your porterhouse, your big, thick bone-in ribeyes, your T-bones, your picanhas, your prime rib roasts. I think those all do really well with the reverse sear that we're going to get into, which will be 250 degrees indirect till we hit an internal temperature that we want to hit. Then we're going to rip the grill, get a nice crust on the outside. To season our Florentine steak, we're going to dry brine it, which is just a fancy way of saying we're going to salt this thing overnight. So what this does, a couple different things. One, it's going to draw moisture from the surface area and let that evaporate. So it's going to give us a much better crust. And then some of that salt is going to penetrate into the meat. So we're going to get some salty flavor there as well. This is a big, thick piece of meat. The only thing that you don't want to do is don't over salt this the next day. So this is going uncovered into the fridge. All that salt is going to disappear completely. You'll see when we pull it back out. Make sure you don't salt it again, because all the salt is in there. It's going to be overly salty if you were to do something like that. But I think you can dry brine the ribeyes as well. I think it makes for a much better steak. We're thinking about crust development. That really helps with the crust. Our Florentine steak has dry brined overnight. You can see that all the salt crystals have penetrated into the meat. They look like they're gone. I promise you, they're not gone. So make sure that you don't add salt to this steak. I'm just going to put on some fresh cracked pepper. And then we're going to put this into the grill. You might be tempted, if you wanted to cut off some of the larger fatty pieces here and trim those off. I think that's totally reasonable if you wanted to do that. For me, I think the reverse sear softens up that fat really well, and I enjoy eating it. When you do reverse sear it, it's not like that really tough gristle you might get at some steakhouses. This is going to be really soft and delicious, but if you want to take it off, that's fine too. We're going to be reverse searing this on the Kamado Joe Jr. So very important that we cleared out all of the ash from inside. We cleaned that up. We've got a beautiful large lump charcoal in here, as well as 2 chunks of oak for some smoke. We're going to get this lit up, set to 250 degrees indirect. So we're going to set this up here with our deflector plate down, and then our grill grate on top of that. We've stabilized at 225, 250. That's what we're shooting for. And then an internal temperature of 115 degrees. I'm going to put that right in the center over our ceramic deflector plate. And then we're going to let this go until it hits 115. Just to show you vent settings here, we are about a quarter closed on the daisy wheel on the Joe Jr. and then a quarter closed on the bottom vent. And that's been holding very steady since we started. We've got some serious weather here. Move the little guy under the umbrella. Pray for this cook. Hopefully we can make it. We survived the rain. We hit internal of 115, and that took about an hour and 15 minutes. And this reverse sear has taken me anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes for smaller steaks, all the way up to hour 15 for these really thick ones. Just 3 inches, 115. Took us an hour 15 to get there. We're going to get this off, and we'll show you how we dress it up. Okay, to set up the sear part of our reverse sear, I'm going to remove the ceramic deflector plate, come back down, then we're going to open the top and bottom vent all the way. We're going to get this hot. We're shooting for about 600, 700, 800 degrees. Now, I'm a bit of a psycho when it comes to steak. So what I like to do while the grill is getting up to temp for our high heat is I like to rub a little beef tallow onto this thing. And that, when it hits the super high temperature of the grill, is going to give us an insane crust. So I give it a little tallow rub here all the way around. And for me, this gives me the absolute best crust. So this is going to wait until our grill gets pretty hot. Okay, we hit 700 degrees. We're going to go ahead and get our sear on now. We're shooting for about 1 to 1.5 minutes per side. Now at 1.5 minutes, we're going to flip. Make sure you burp your grill before you open it, so 1 inch. So you sear it for about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes on each side. And then for a piece this big, I think it's really important that you rest it for about 5-10 minutes. I think for smaller pieces, you can go right into it. But we're just going to treat this with a little bit of truffle butter and let that melt on while this is resting. And then we will slice it up. We've rested this for close to 10 minutes. This is our T-bone right here. New York strip on this side, filet on this side. I'm going to go ahead and get this sliced. And I like to use a sharp fillet knife to come down. And we'll slice our fillet as well. Smells fantastic. So this is sliced up. I love to finish my steak with a little fleur de sel, which is a French finishing salt. It's flaky, adds some really nice texture to everything. And you know, we don't have salt in the middle of a really large piece of beef. And then just love making some fresh chimichurri and just dousing that all over. That's parsley, oregano, garlic, red wine vinegar, crushed red pepper, shallot. And it really is, I think, the best accompaniment to a steak that I've had yet. But you could also sauce this up with like a demi-glace or, you know, anything you're really into, or just eat it straight. Nothing wrong with that. That steak turned out awesome. The only thing I would do a little bit different, I checked the tape, it rested for 12 minutes on the money. For the next time, I think I would rest it 15 to 20 minutes for a steak that thick, 3 inches thick. just takes a little bit of extra time to rest. When we sliced into it, it was still steaming hot, so I don't think you're going to lose anything on the heat side. But other than that, great steak. Let's go to our standard bearers, the standard thick cuts. Chapter 2, the classics. The next group that we're breaking down, kind of the medium thickness steaks. So these are just absolutely beautiful prime ribeyes that we got from Costco. But think about your New York strips. These are about 1.5 inches, so anywhere from 1 to 1.5 inches are your medium thick steaks. And these, I think it's kind of dealer's choice how you want to do it. You could straight grill them hot and fast. A lot of people do that, have a ton of success with that. And that's kind of your standard. You could do a reverse sear once they reach this 1.5 inch thickness. They'll do pretty well with a reverse sear. These I've done them before sous vide, and then you finishing them on a ripping hot grill, 700-800 degrees for a minute aside. That's a great way to cook a steak. But what we're going to show you today is this trick I picked up from Jose Andres called tempering, where we're gonna cook these kind of slowly around 250-300 degrees on a higher shelf with a lower bed of coals, and then we're going to let that grill rip and sear it up really hot. But a couple buying tips when you're looking at ribeyes, because this is probably one of my all-time favorite cuts. This is a prime ribeye, so you can see all of the little intramuscular fat deposits in there. That's what we're looking at for prime compared to choice. That's very important, but not all prime ribeyes are the same. So at any given store, if you go to, make sure that you're looking for these little flecks of fat. That's what's going to melt down as you're grilling it and give you incredible flavor. And then another big ribeye buying tip for me is you have the anatomy of the ribeye is you have the eye of the ribeye, then you have this big fat stripe right here, and then you have the cap that sits on top of that. This cap is meat gold. I think it is the best cut of the cow, all in. So when I'm looking at ribeyes, I try and find ones that have the biggest caps. And if I can do that, then you're in business. Oh, baby. I love the ribeye cap. Super important. And then as far as buying guides, you can look at, there's prime versus choice plus. I think it starts at choice, then choice plus, then prime, then you have the whole Wagyu breeds of cows. In general, you want to do your own research, because I have found that there are choice plus black Angus that look better than Wagyu from different stores. So you never really know. What you want to do is find a trusted producer that you like their stuff, that they treat the cows well, and they butcher them well. And I think that goes a long way, because probably the most important thing when you're grilling steak is high quality steak going into the grill. That's going to give you a really high quality meal coming out. We got this beautiful ribeye that we seasoned up very simply with kosher salt and fresh cracked pepper. We're going to get this onto the Kamado Joe, and let me show you how we set this one up. So for the tempering here, we're going to have a cooler, higher area for the meat to just kind of come up to temperature. That's right here. And then a hotter, direct area right down here. So I pushed all the coals over to this lower grate side. We're going to hang out up here at about 250-300 degrees. And then I threw in a meter thermometer just so we can tell when it's going to be ready. We're shooting for about 115 degrees. We'll see exactly how long that takes. And what's really nice about this is the meat slowly comes to temperature, because there's 3 ways that steak gets cooked in the grill. You have conduction, that's the hot metal grates that are touching the meat itself. That's not going to do a ton here because it's not a very hot grill. Then you have convection. That's the air flowing around in the grill from the hot side to the higher cooler side. That's exactly what we're going to be doing here as we temper this to get it started. The hot air is going to flow around there. And then we have infrared heat. That's the invisible direct heat that's coming right off the coals. When we crank up the heat on this to sear it, that's what we're going to get some beautiful, beautiful cooking from. But right now we're going convection. We're going to close this up. We'll let you know exactly how long it sits there for before it hits 115. That took exactly 20 minutes. So now we're going to move it to the hot part of the grill and get a really nice crust on it. You see there's no good crust on it here. We're going to move it right on top of the coals, get that infrared heat going. Then I'm going to open the bottom vent. I'm gonna let the lid hang open for about a minute or two just to really build the fire. I've noticed in the Kamado Joe when you're smoking at low temperatures, if you leave that lid open, all that oxygen gets into the coals and really starts to rip the fire quicker than if you just do the top vent open. So about a minute wide open in the lid, I'm gonna close it, and then we're gonna sear it for about 3 to 4 minutes at 600 to 700 degrees. The other trick you can do if you want to heat this quicker is you can blow on it, just get some extra oxygen in the coals. You can blow through the bottom, and in a pinch, if you had to, you could rip a leaf blower down there, but that's going to shoot ash everywhere. So only do that if you don't have food in there. I was seared for a few minutes per side just to get a little crust going. I'm going to get it off the grill here. We're going to let that rest for a couple minutes. Now, while we're here, in the name of science, I've got another ribeye. We're going to try another technique. This is very popular in South America. My family's from Argentina, called just keep flipping. So every minute, we're going to flip this steak until it reaches the internal temperature that we want. So I'm just going to drop it down, great sizzle, and I'm going to flip that. Every minute will count how long it takes. So that took exactly 10 minutes of flipping every minute. Really nice crust development here. You can tell that this one's got a richer, darker mahogany crust compared to the one that we tempered. If I had to do it differently, I probably would have brought the grill up to temp a little more before I threw the tempered one on the grates. That was my mistake, but you know, it's grilling. We're learning all the time. But both of these smell delicious. Excited to get in there. I learned a ton of this meat science stuff from the Meathead cookbook. I love it. Highly recommend it. I learned a ton about smoking meat, all sorts of stuff. So I highly recommend this Meathead cookbook. Now, if you're going to eat the steak by yourself, by all means, dig in after resting it for a couple minutes. If you're going to share it with somebody else, I like to take this opportunity to slice it up so I can get some more salt into that. So here's our tempered steak. Really nice pink on the inside. Smells fantastic. The fat has rendered down really nicely. And then I'll take some Fleur-de-Sel French finishing salt and get that directly onto the sliced meat. And then you get some nice charred, salty beef. That's the way I love to eat my steak. Now we'll slice into our just keep flipping steak. Very nice, tender, juicy. I think either way is good. Very delicious. Very excited about these. I love ribeyes on the grill. Can't be beat. Chapter 3, thin cuts. Next up, we've got house staple skirt steak. Now for thin steaks, I think this is about as good as it gets. You got great fat, great marbling in here, tremendous flavor. And we'll do these hot and fast. I think thin steaks always got to go hot and fast. For us, the recipe is roughly 600 to 700 degrees. About 5 minutes. We'll show you some tricks on the grill on how to tell doneness for something like this because you can't really use a thermometer on it. And for us, it's always outside. I think outside is way better than inside skirt steak. And we'll always go with the peeled. I'll see some really nice steaks advertised online, Wagyu, for example, but they're unpeeled. And then you got to do all the work yourself. So save yourself a lot of trouble. Get outside skirt steak, peeled. You're ready to rock. This is usually too long to fit completely on the grill. So I like to cut it with a pair of kitchen shears. And then I'm looking for kind of natural stopping points here where there's a significant difference in thickness. So right here will be a good place to stop. And then if you've got, for example, a really thin piece like this end, this is going to cook way, way faster than the thicker piece in the middle. So we can kind of take that off here, and that's going to cook in a matter of minutes, like 1 to 2 minutes, compared to the bigger pieces here. And if you wanted to, these take really well to marinades. You could throw soy sauce, olive oil, kind of anything in there, garlic, oregano, onion, garlic, shallots. Takes really well. For us, we go pretty simple, salt and pepper. Grew up on these, my family's from Argentina, so we had entraña at just about every asado. But it's one of our favorite steaks, and we're going to do it super simple here with salt and pepper. Now, one important tip when you're going hot and fast like this is your steaks have got to be dry. You got to kind of get a paper towel on these and get the moisture that came in the bag with them off, because we're going to be flipping just about every minute. And if it's wet, it can stick to the grill grates, or it might kind of steam up on you. So very important that this meat is dry. When we're talking about creating great crust, it's about having steak that's not wet like this, like it comes out. So make sure we'll pat that dry with some paper towels here. And then we'll just hit this with some kosher salt and pepper. That's going to be our whole seasoning. We'll do both sides and get it on the grill. We got our steaks ready here. We're stabilized at 650. Got there with the top vent opened all the way, but the vent itself is closed. And then the bottom vent is open all the way. Now we'll get our steaks down. And remember, we're roughly shooting for 5 minutes, flipping every minute. I'm going to put this over the hottest part of the grill. Right down the middle. And then our little guy will go right there. And then we're timing 1 minute at a time. Okay, 1 minute in, we're gonna flip. It's important that we got a crust there so we don't stick to the grates. And that looks great, good sizzle. These ended up cooking for 4 minutes. The little guy took about 1.5 minutes. And one way you can check for doneness, depending on what you're looking for, is you can do this palm test here, where if you touch your index finger with your thumb and then touch your palm right here, that's rare. Middle finger to the thumb is medium rare, kind of medium. And this is medium well, and then well done. So we want to be in this range, and you can just kind of poke at the steak and the thicker parts and see where you're at there. And just know that the thinner parts will cook faster than that. Now, depending on how you want to serve these, you could just kind of cut them and serve them as steaks. We do that a lot with our family, and the people who want them more done get the thinner pieces. The people who want the less done ones get the thicker pieces. If you're going to do tacos with these, for example, and you want to slice it, you just want to be sure that you're going to slice against the grain. And here we have a perpendicular grain to the length of the steak, and this is common for all the skirt steaks here. So just mind your grain right there, and then you slice and then turn it 90 degrees, and then you slice just like that. And that'll be perfect for tacos or anything like that. If you were to slice with the grain, for example, you'd have a really tough, chewy piece like that. And we had a buddy in our barbecue chat, shout out to the barbecue nerds, who we're all in this skirt steak kick. We're all making skirt steaks all the time. And he sends us a picture of a skirt steak tacos. Looks just like that. And he goes, they tasted really good, but I don't know, they're tough to chew. And immediately 7 guys respond back, you sliced it with the grain, buddy, and bought him all sorts of like Fisher Price kids toys. But when you do it like this, you can see the cross section here. That's going to be super tender and juicy. And I mean, you can see the juices here, but that'll just pull apart with almost no, not a lot of pull there. Versus if we were to look at the one that we sliced with the grain, try to pull it apart and really squeezing it and going for it, won't do it. You gotta cut across the muscle. And then like this is just crazy tender, super delicious. All right, barbecue family, I got a confession to make. I got to come from a place of intellectual honesty. That skirt steak was absolutely perfect, exactly what I was looking for. But the first thin cut that I grilled was a flap steak that turned out fine, but not as amazing as I wanted to. It wasn't one of the top 10 steaks I've grilled this year, and I didn't want to throw it in. So I did the skirt after that, which turned out great. But in the interest of learning from our mistakes, I think it's a really good encapsulation of what happens if you don't A, pat dry your steak before it goes on the grill, and B, have a grill that's not hot enough. So for the flap that I'm going to show you next, I'm going to leave it in here. I ended up grilling it for 6 minutes at 550 degrees, and I think that's just too cold and too long for thin steaks like that. They really need to go 600 to 700 degrees, get patted dry, and what you're going to see in this video is that I couldn't flip it for 3 minutes, and I tried. At 2 minutes, it was still stuck to the grates, and I couldn't get that Maillard reaction where it's just charring up on the grates and lifting up nice and easy. And so that's a problem, and that's something that we learned from. And then we're able to go much hotter and faster the next time. It's the exact opposite situation of the Florentine that we started with, where by the time you get a beautiful crust on the outside, your inside is completely raw. For the thin steaks, when you get a beautiful brown crust on the outside, your inside is completely overcooked, past well done. So you really have to go hot and fast on these thinner steaks because you just don't have time for the inside. So hot and fast. And here's a look at what happens when we go cold and slow. Chapter 4. Let's get it over with. Our grill here is stabilized at 550 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and put the steak right down. And now, because this is a uniform piece of meat, the thickness is very solid. We're going to shoot for about 5 minutes at 550 degrees, and then we're going to see where we're at. 2 minutes in, I'm going to go ahead and give this a flip. Make sure that you burp your grill. Just open it about an inch before opening it up all the way. Looking and smelling good. And you know what? It's still sticking to the grate, so I'm going to let that go another minute and just make sure it can release properly. Now we're at the 3-minute mark, and I give this a flip. Nice charring. You want to get a good sense for where your hot zones are. So clearly right here in the center is our hottest spot. And then our grate, we structured it on the lower grate level. And we threw in a couple wood blocks in there for some extra smoke. But in general, if your meat is sticking to the grates, it just means you're not hot enough, or you have to just give it a little bit more time for these Maillard reaction to separate from the grill, the grill grates themselves. We hit 6 minutes total cook so far. I'm going to pull this off, and we're going to take a look. Now, this steak is good to serve as is right now. It's ready to go. If you wanted to serve it as steaks, I would just portion it off and then serve it to people like that. If you wanted to make it into kind of like tacos or fajitas or anything like that, and you wanted to slice it, make sure you pay very close attention to the grain here. And that's the way the muscle fibers are traveling. And we want to make sure that we slice against the grain. That's going to give us a much easier texture to chew. So just like that. And then this should pull apart no problem. Versus if we had cut with the grain here, it just wouldn't pull apart the same. So that's what we got for steak on the grill. It's the thing that I cook the most. My family loves it. I really, really enjoy a well-charred, medium rare piece of meat. But I'm always looking to learn more. So if you've got some great tips on steak, I learn all the time. Please drop them in the comments. I want to learn from our community. It's been such a beautiful journey for us so far. But thank you so much for watching. If you like that, please hit subscribe as well. Thank you.